Production of KMmedia.pro. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So come on over into our world. I know you'll like it, because on today's show... Well, on today's show, it's Monday, by the way, if anybody cares or thinks about it. It's a beautiful day. It's now fall, and it's rainy. So I guess if we talk to Eric real quick, I guess that's what's going to happen now is we're in the fall, and it's going to be like this for like ever now.
Not forever. But yeah, we do have a rainy, very fall-like week ahead. So, we're right on schedule.
Yes, indeed. Well, the gal we're going to be talking to, her name is Merrie Reagan, and she's back east, and she got the same stuff that we do. It was sunny on Sunday, and now it's rainy. It's fall is here, and it's going to hit like a ton of bricks, but that's okay. Since you're in control of the weather, I'd like you to make it better if you can.
I'll do my best. I tell you what, how about some sunshine on Saturday?
I'll take that. That would be really good. The author we have on today is she's a wonderful young lady, and her book encapsulates a memoir of hers over a period of time, and she also gets to talk about. It's almost like I was reading parts of the book, and I haven't got through the whole thing yet because I just got it on Friday because the mail service is a little slow, Merrie. But which is okay. But it strikes to me as being almost Forrest Gump like because it encapsulates your life and things that were going on a personal level, but you also get to talk about some of the things that were happening on the national stage, like the shooting at Andy Hook and a bunch of other different things. The presidents of George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, and Hurricane Sandy, and all the kind of things. And you weave all of those things that were happening around you in your personal memoir. And you're also redoing it or coming up with a second version of it, which will be coming out in the next 3 weeks. So the name of the book, of course, is Life Flashes. It's a memoir by Merrie Reagan. And Merrie, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk with you. And you're right. I appreciate you saying it's Forrest Gump, right? Even though it's like Forrest Gump. I don't fully know what you mean when you say that, but I know that I really enjoyed that movie very much. It was very tender and very authentic. So I appreciate that. And yes, I did. It is the diary. It was written in a fashion in which current events and past events were incorporated into it, because I felt that as a journalist, it wasn't responsible for me not to include those events, because people are affected by things that go on around us every day, locally, nationally, and internationally. And we, in turn, the decisions that we make affect others, not only immediately around us, but nationally and internationally. How does this happen? I don't fully know, but I know that faith teaches me that this is so. Whether faith, meaning whether a church person is a churchgoer or not. And it's exciting to think that decisions we make affect people not only around us, immediately around us, but around the world. That's how connected we are with one another.
Oh, exactly. And the way that I view it is that we're all one. We're all one family. We are all one human family, and it's important for us to work together rather than to be destructive and have hate and division for other people. We are all we are all one, and we all need to work together, and that's how we're going to make the planet a better place. And what I meant by my Forrest Gump like was that he was living his life as a simple man, and but he was surrounded by all of these things in history that were happening around him, like what was happening with you in some of the writings that you do, as well as your walk through your development of yourself and your faith and everything that went along with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. For example, in 1961, as a young girl, there's so many instances of this influence. As a young girl, I remember watching John Glenn, astronaut John Glenn,
Sure.
splashing down into the Atlantic Ocean near the NASA in Florida, the NASA operation in Florida, after he had circled the Earth 3 times. And the United States at that time was involved in a space race with Russia. And then in 1969, I remember seeing the Apollo spaceship. The Apollo spaceship going to the moon, and astronaut Neil Armstrong walking on the moon and saying one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yep.
And then, of course, there were the Challenger disaster, the Challenger shuttle disaster in 1986, in which all the astronauts were killed shortly after the shuttle took off. And then in 2003, there was a Columbia shuttle disaster ironically, just before it splashed down into the ocean. But then in 2013, I was at a Memorial Day celebration, honoring veterans from all the wars, from World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Gulf War, and the main speaker was someone with whom I went to high school, and his name is Stephen Bowen. He was now he's retired, but he was a U.S. Navy submarine specialist. He was an admiral, and he was chosen to be the first NASA astronaut mission specialist. And he went on 3 missions to the International Space Station, which is about I don't know how you describe it. I'm not fully sure, but it's an operation that, or it could be like a satellite. I don't know. It's about 250 miles above the Earth, and they at the International Space Station, they do astronauts who are they're from different countries, and they're performing scientific experiments and research. And so Stephen was one of the astronauts that for 3 missions that he went there, he was bringing, they were bringing cargo and supplies.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how through the years you see people, persevering through, aspiring to do things, persevering through tragedy, and moving on. And that you'll see that all throughout the book.
Yeah, the space station is the most expensive condo in the world. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not. Yeah, there's so many things that I found out about people. Like, for example, did you know that the night before Jimmy Carter was elected president, he was mopping the basement floor of the home that he was sharing with Rosalind Carter, wife Rosalind Carter, in Plains, Georgia. And I found that out because I went to an event where former First Lady Rosalind Carter was speaking at the JFK Library. And I found that really interesting. And I remember watching him the night I was in college, and I was watching him at the White House, and he was witnessing the signing of a Middle East peace agreement that had been he had helped negotiate with then President, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, and Israeli President Begin. What was his first name? Menachem Begin. Yeah. And I remember being teary-eyed when I saw him. I'm not a highly political person, but I remember looking into his eyes and thinking, he's a good man. And it's not, I don't think he's a good man because he's the president. It's not necessarily about being president, but it's not about the position you're in, but what's in your heart. And he came across to me as being a very peaceful man, and something, and a faithful man. I thought this is something that I aspire to. I mean, I remember President Bush, the night of 9/11, coming on to giving America a message through television and characterizing the acts that happened on 9/11 as despicable and causing unimaginable suffering. And he said that America was attacked because it represents a bright beacon of light, and no person or persons can ever stop this light from shining. And terrorists can destroy buildings, but they can't destroy the fabric of America. And that still, remembering that still, chokes me up a bit. And I said, you can't, that's somebody who's not a strong leader couldn't say that. I mean, it just showed his strong leadership, just as I remember former ABC news anchor Charlie Gibson talking about, he was a reporter at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And just before 9/11 occurred, just before the first plane struck one of the Twin Towers, he and Diane Sawyer were off the air because the reports had come in, the video came in, but all the producers were running around wanting to verify that this really was happening. And so they did that, and then all of a sudden, the producer says, "Okay, Diane and Charlie, you're on the air," after they've just seen over 200 people crash into a building and die. I can't even imagine what that must have been. That experience must have been like for them. And Charlie said that for weeks after 9/11 happened, he found himself regularly teary-eyed when he was on air and off air. Because he was remembering faces of people that, and things that they said. So I don't know if you want to follow up on that. I want to think of anything else that, really jumps out at me, but.
When you got to see, you and I are contemporaries. So
right.
we was born just about the same time. There may be a few years difference, but when you look at the amount of history that you and I have had the opportunity to be part of, both good and bad, from things like one of my earliest memories was the assassination of JFK.
Yeah.
Followed 4 months later by the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was one of the most coolest things I'd ever seen in my life.
Well, let me just say something about that, because, me too. And one of the things that's really interesting about that is that television was only about 10 years old then. It was a new medium. And when President Kennedy died, there were like people running around to get cameras, TV cameras to photograph the video. Photograph the funeral. And what was I going to say? And actually, the only reason that there was any footage of the assassination was because Abraham Zapruder, who was a tailor, and he owned a business right beside the building where Lee Harvey Oswald, who killed him, he was in that building. I think it's Texas Depository Building.
Yeah, there was a.
Um,
Mhm.
he shot him from there, and he just, he went out to watch it, and he unwittingly filmed it. But television at that time, again, that was a new medium, and so it gave people a chance nationally to grieve as a nation. And a lot of it was for many people, it was the first time, for many children, it was the first time they saw one or both of their parents cry. And I remember sitting around the table with family members watching the funeral, and we barely spoke a word.
That's one of those moments in time, and there are in my lifetime there have probably been 6 or 7 of them where you remember exactly where you were when you
Yeah,
got news of
yeah,
it. As an
yeah.
example, I remember where I was when Elvis Presley passed away, or when John Lennon passed away, or Robert Kennedy, or Martin Luther
Mhm,
King. We've lost so many good people in our lifetimes,
mhm, mhm.
but we've also experienced some wonderful and inventions. And when you and I were young, flying was not something that everybody was able to do, and to get into an airplane like they do now, and it's just there's so many different things that even when you were a kid, the phone system was so different than it is today, and
Mhm.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it really is remarkable. And
I've
in your go ahead.
yeah, I remember. Well, I remember when cell phones first came out, and I thought, oh no, I'm not doing that. I am not doing that. That's no, I'm not doing that. And but then I did it, and now I don't even think twice. I mean, when I started writing Life Flash as a memoir, I was writing with a composition notebook and whiteout, lots of whiteout. But but what happened was, over time, you use whiteout, and then sometimes it doesn't dry evenly, so it makes writing over what you've written difficult. And then sometimes, um, if it doesn't dry properly, it cracks. So then a family member gave me, who's a business person, gave me a laptop to use. And after that, I started using it. And as a rookie laptop user, I didn't know what I was doing sometimes, and I ended up losing material because I didn't know where it went. But overall, generally, I didn't look back, because you could correct things right away. The copy was clean,
Hmm.
and I know it's funny how we wonder now, like, how did I live without that? How did I live without a cell phone? How did I live without?
Oh yeah, I have a fun fact for you.
What's that?
Do you know whose family developed whiteout? Do you know who Michael Nesmith was?
No.
He was a singer in the Monkees, and and his mother developed whiteout, or his father, or one of his relatives.
Oh, whiteout. I thought you said who developed the White House.
No, no, that was way
I don't
before
know.
my time.
I'm stuck on
Yeah.
that one.
By the way, we're talking with Merrie Reagan, and she's written the book Life Flashes, a memoir. We need to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the history of it and how it intertwined with her personal history and some of the things that she has developed on a personal note over time that's in the book. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Do you need to boost your sales? Join our partnership program. Each quarter, we promote 10 partner businesses. What will you get? The company will produce one 30-second video for your business, your website links on positivetalkradio.net and kmmedia.pro, one dedicated podcast or radio show per month, one video Instagram reel, one YouTube short, one 60-second clip for social media taken from your interview, and at least one commercial airplay per show. All podcast and video commercials are within the fabric of the show and will remain in the show forever. Visit kmmedia.pro to book a consultation today.
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. For being our appreciated listener, you can use promo code PTR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your order. anaturaldesign.com at your fingertips today.
We believe in the power of telling your stories. We want to help yours be seen and heard. At the Pacific Northwest Collaborative Magazine, our purpose is to connect you to your community. Let's begin by celebrating the accomplishments of local artists featured in this brand new digital magazine. Here, you can learn about opportunities to creatively come together and support our local community and neighbors through the gift of art and service. If your business or organization would like to take part in this magazine, message us on Instagram at pnw.collab. You can download our free digital magazine at KM Media Pro today.
Thank you to our dedicated fans. We are updating our live on-air schedule to make it super easy for you to hang out with us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, and live on Fridays with Kixie 8:80 a.m. Seattle Live. You can find our library to binge all the podcast platforms. We can't wait to see you at 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, starting September 4th, Labor Day 2023.
And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. My name is Kevin McDonald, and I just wanted to point out that, yes, every day at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube, we do an episode. Either it's going to be live, like today's episode is live on YouTube, and tomorrow's is a podcast, and Wednesdays is right now a podcast, but then we do live at 4. It gets real complicated at this point. And then Thursday at 3 o'clock as well. And on Friday, we do noon on KKNW and 3 o'clock on Kixie. And so I invite you to enjoy all of the Positive Talk shows that we do. We have some great guests. We've got over 600 podcasts up now under Positive Talk Radio. So I encourage you to go, and you can binge, and it'd take you almost a month to binge all of the shows 24 hours a day. So you got lots of material to play with. So I hope you'll go do that. Today we're talking with Merrie Reagan, and she's written the book Life Flashes, a Memoir. And Merrie, this is a 14-year period over which you wrote. Holy Moses, that you've written the book, and it's based on your experiences from where you lived in Massachusetts, and all the things, your diary of your personal things, your memoir, a biography, and spiritual commentary that is all encompassed within the book, as well as national events, which is what we've been talking about in the first part of the show. But I wanted to talk to you more about how you wrote the book and your decision to put it all together the way that you did.
Sure. I started, well, first of all, I didn't intend to write the book. I found I've been finding late in life that things that I don't intend to do, that I don't plan to do, are the things that I enjoy in ways far beyond planning to do things. And so it started out I started writing the book in 2007, just because I wanted to write a journal, as I had written before. And I'd written a journal before, but I didn't care for what I was writing. I was ruminating a good deal in the journal. And I said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So I started writing again. And in doing so, I vowed that I wasn't going to sugarcoat the writing, but I wasn't going to wallow in self-pity either. So I started it. And then 3 years later, I said, I think this is a book. I think I'm going to continue with it until it's finished. Had I known then that it was going to be 11 more years before I finished it, I probably wouldn't have finished it. And that's a testament as to why that we're not always advised as to when things will happen. But I'm glad for I'm glad for having worked on it. I wouldn't give the time back. It starts out with a conversion experience. And I was very ill at the time, and through a spiritual conversion, I had been ill actually for several years, and I had been prescribed antidepressant medication for several years. And as a result of this spiritual conversion, or a prayer, a simple conversation with God, and deciding that I wanted to choose life instead of death, my life began over again for me. I had walked outside a house in which I was living. I was very lightly dressed. It was a January morning, and I began a conversation. I began thinking, I don't think I'm going to be able to go on much longer. I've been ill for so long now, and I don't know how to move beyond the massive darkness that I've been experiencing. And then I didn't realize it then, but I remember saying, no, I don't. And that was God asking me if I wanted life to end this way for me. And I said, no, I don't. And at that moment, I knew that in facing mortality, I knew that God was there. I knew it, and I will know it all forever, that God is there and God is listening and that God cares. So I began conversation saying, well, this is why I've been upset, and I did this, and I don't forgive myself. And then I heard the voice of God say to me, I forgave you for these things years ago. And I was speechless, as I am almost now. So I said, well, and tears were falling down this face, and I continued walking. And I said, but Lord, I don't know how to, I can't hold a job. I'm financially unstable. Relationships are difficult for me. I don't know how. I don't know step one. And then in the dark of early morning light, when it's dark, it's 5 a.m., I felt this spiritual hand reach down to me, and it was composed of bright white light. In the hand, and I heard the voice of God say to me, come with me. I'll show you how to live again. So that on that very day, I stopped ingesting prescription medication, and I haven't ever had any desire to be on it again. Now, I'm not saying that if a person is ingesting antidepressants that you do that. I'm saying that's something that's a personal. That's between you and your relation in a relationship with God. But it did happen, and you'll see that a lot of in the book there are many of the circumstances I was facing then are very similar now. They didn't change, but you'll see that I changed. And it says that people can change. As someone that I met when I was in college, he was a very positive person. I was 19 when I met him, and he was 17, and he's just very, very positive. And I remember him saying to me, people can change at any age, at any time. And that's so true. So, and other things have, I've just been, it enabled me to, first of all, the conversion, passion for living came back. That's the first thing that comes back. And then in that, your gratitude for people, places, and things around you. You start remembering people that, and you start putting relationships into perspective, and appreciating people and respecting limitations of relationships. So it's been a wonderful, it was a wonderful journey, wonderful literary journey. And it's a pleasure to be able to, I wrote it, not only to share these things, but to also, I wanted it to, it's a love letter to God and to the world. And I want it to travel as far as it can travel.
And it's been out for a couple of years, but it's coming out again because you're
It's been out for about a year, a little over a year, and hopefully it's coming. There's been some issues serious issues, which I won't go into at the moment. But there's been some serious issues going on in the publishing world that authors have been facing. And so it's been challenged by that. And it has bravely, Life Flashes, a memoir, has bravely persevered through these challenges so far. So hopefully within the next few weeks that the second edition will be out. I remember working on the second edition about 6 weeks ago, and I read the final manuscript, and I thought, this is when I read it, it's like spreading creamy peanut butter. It's very smooth and it flows, and I thought, this is very contenting, very, very contenting.
Well, now you've been around a while, like I have been around a while.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I've discovered, and I think that if everybody were to stop and to pay attention to their life and what's been going on with them, all the experiences that we have, both good and negative, they're all there designed for a reason. It's designed to take you from where you were to where you are today. As long as you pay attention to those things and you can learn from the experiences that you've had, and with the hand of God or the universe or whatever you choose.
Transcendent being, however you define God.
Yeah. However you decide.
Well, that's what I've been able to appreciate too. It's success can be just as challenging as failure.
Even more so.
It can change your life. So so this idea that when you're successful, you're happy, and then when you're not successful, you're miserable. It's not true. So one of the things through the year, and that's helped me with that, helped me a lot, is prayer. It helps me to realize, again, that the relationship with God enables me to be turning it over to God, who treats us as equal partners. When you think, he could be a bull, he could be subservient, God is in no way treats us as subservient. He loves us all beyond imagining, and yet he treats us as equal partners, and he will not bully us or force us into partnering with being a partner. He just will not do that. So if you feel as though that's what God's doing, it's not God, it's the other guy.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things. And I will tell you, though, that God does allow us to have free will. And
that's right.
we get to use the free will however we choose to, without judgment by him, because he allows us to do that. That's part of the deal. But at the same time, if you pay attention and make the right decisions, or the decisions that serve you best, with the guidance of folks that I call from the other side, they can help you to make those decisions, and when you have the free will, you can make the right free will decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Free will is fundamental. I mean, I remember many years ago, I was teaching a CCD class. I did that for one semester.
What's a CCD class?
It was a religious education class.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
For fourth graders. And I enjoyed it. I did it once, but then I just found out that I couldn't. But I really loved the children. They were I really enjoyed working with them. And we were talking about Sandy Hook, the shootings. And one day, and this fourth grade boy, I remember, he folded his hands together and he says, I don't know how God could allow this. He says, I struggle with this every day. And he bowed his head. And I said, I reassured him, God did not want this to happen. God did not allow this to happen. God gives every person free will. And without free will, we cannot be free people. And even though, Adam Lanza, who was the young man who shot, I think it was 22 people, children and staff of Sandy Hook Elementary, though he was mentally ill, he still made it. You don't lose that. And he chose to shoot his mother. He chose to shoot the children and staff of Sandy Hook Elementary, and he chose to commit suicide. So, and I believe that God dealt with that, and in a forgiving way. Now, when I say forgiving, what I mean is God held him accountable for that. I don't know how God did, but God does hold us accountable for what we do. And he also is healing. He also brought home all the people that the children and the adults that he murdered, and he is continuing. I believe he's continuing to heal the people that suffered with that. Suffered with this event. And it's funny how you can be. Don't you find that too? How you can be really. You don't know somebody, and and you're affected by something that happens to them. Does that not happen to you regularly?
Oh yeah. Well, we just had
Yeah.
one of the bigger times just recently passed was 9/11, and
Yeah.
that affected a lot of people,
Mhm.
and still does to this day, as
Mhm.
does Sandy Hook,
Yeah.
because that has opened up a lot of eyes, I think, to the necessity for us to not only get help for mentally ill people, but
Mhm.
also to
Mhm.
talk about our the gun issue, and they
Mhm.
that even what is it 15, 20 years later, people are still talking about the gun issue as it relates to Sandy Hook, and
Mhm.
and it's important that we continue those things, to look at them on an ongoing basis, because
Yeah.
that was something that happened, and we have the ability to not let it happen again, and we should take that responsibility to not let that
Mhm.
happen again.
Right. Well, I think, what was I going to say? One of the things, one of the very interesting points that former First Lady Rosalind Carter made when she came to visit, she visited the JFK Library in 2010. She worked on mental health issues for years, and she was very instrumental in passing the Mental Health System Act of 1979, which publicly disavowed the overcrowding of state hospitals. I mean, um, when Jimmy Carter was the governor of Georgia, she visited some state hospitals, and she saw people, state hospitals that were meant for 3,000 people, 12,000 people crowded into a space designed for 3,000 people rocking back and forth in chairs aimlessly and wearing diapers. And So she was a very instrumental in helping overcome this. So she was in the deinstitutionalization of mental health hospitals that began because of this bill, and the opening of outpatient centers for people who were mentally ill, who could handle not being in the hospital, and group homes for people so that they would be living in more of a residential setting. But one of the things that she said, she had written a book called Within Our Reach, Ending the Mental Health Crisis. And in the book, she pointed out that 25% of workplace productivity losses happen because of mental illness. And you could hear the gasp in the audience when she said that, because all of a sudden it just blew the door wide open to the reality that mental illness isn't for just some people. It's society wide. It's not, some people that go to a hospital. And back in the 60s, when you and I were growing up, and it's true because it is true, because I know people that were, when in the 60s, if you were seriously mentally ill, you either went to a private or a state mental health facility. There wasn't any other treatment available. And so we've come, and it's just wonderful to see how far we've come, and how how far we can go. And then, well, I don't know whether I want to. I remember watching a 60 Minutes segment in 2015. It had been re-aired, and the assistant director of placebo studies at Harvard University and Beth Israel Deaconess in Boston, he was talking with CBS correspondent Leslie Stahl. And he was saying, what he said was that they found in 30 years of research that people who are mildly or moderately depressed and are being prescribed antidepressants are becoming well essentially through the placebo effect of the medications, not the drugs themselves. And Leslie Stahl immediately rebutted, what do you mean? I know people who are taking prescription medications, and we all know them, and they're getting well. And he said, yes, they are becoming well. But what they found in their studies of 30 years is people are becoming well, again, essentially through the placebo effects, the powerful belief in healing that when one takes a pill. So I found it really fascinating, really, really fascinating.
By the way, we are talking with Merrie Reagan. She's written the book Life Flashes, a memoir. I highly recommend that you get that book. It really is a interesting journey through a number of years that affects your life and also what was happening around in the world at that time. We need to take another really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Merrie and her book right after this. So please hang with us. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio on KKNW 1150 AM.
Thank you to our dedicated fans. We are updating our live on-air schedule to make it super easy for you to hang out with us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, and live on Fridays with Kixie 8:80 a.m. Seattle Live. You can find our library to binge all the podcast platforms. We can't wait to see you at 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, starting September 4th, Labor Day 2023.
Hello, everybody. If I could have your attention, please, I have an important announcement to make just for you. As you may know, PTR is heard and seen on radio, KKNW, and now Kixie, several websites, podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and most social media. At PTR, we believe in working together to make the world a better place, and because you're listening, we know that you're dedicated to the same. So we'd like to support your efforts by offering an outstanding multimedia package for you at a deeply discounted rate. As our partner, you'll receive commercial creation, both video and audio, at least 10 commercial plays per week, a monthly show to highlight your business and passion, exclusive website positioning with links, video shorts for social media, commercial plays on all shows, podcasts, KKNW, and Kixie. Your commercial is embedded into each episode and as a podcast is sent to over 50 different platforms. All shows are performed live and sent to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and stay there forever. Your podcast episodes are provided to you to use as you see fit. This one-time offer is only $250 a week, based on a 13-week commitment, and as our partner, we are vested in your success, and will do everything in our power to make it happen. However, there are limited spots available, so don't hesitate. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro, and let's get the ball rolling.
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. anaturaldesign.com at your fingertips today.
Hey there, I would personally like to thank you for making Positive Talk Radio part of your day. Whether you like podcasts or the radio show, we're glad to have you along. I'd love to hear from you with thoughts about the show and ways that we can make it even better. You are the reason we do these shows, because the more people we can touch, the better we can make the planet and our time here just magnificent. Please contact me, Kevin, at kmmedia.pro with any thoughts, comments, or suggestions. And thank you for being in my dream. And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. And my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'd like to thank you and welcome you to being in my dream. It is nice to have Merrie here. She's been in my dream for the entire hour. Has it been as good a dream as you'd like it to be, my dear?
Pardon me?
Have you enjoyed the dream that you're in right now?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
And I wanted to ask you, because you've taken, this was a 14-year adventure to get this book written, and it's continuing. Do you have plans for a second book? What do you see yourself doing? You're a young lady, so what do you see yourself doing in the next 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah, I'm a young lady who'll be 70 next month. Very young.
Oh, that's
70
all
years
right.
young.
You can live to be 110 these days without batting an eye.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know whether I'll be writing another book right now. What I'm really enjoying, as much as writing the book, is connecting with people about the book. It was a passion project. It's very much like a child to me. Life Flash is a memoir, and I want to spend a good amount of time doing that. So I don't know, but right now I'm very content with. With the hope of releasing the second edition soon and sharing that with as wide an audience as possible.
By the way, Kathy has commented in, and she says, "You're doing a great job." She really enjoys listening to you. So,
that'll probably buy her lunch from me.
Well, good. I hope it's
at least one lunch anyway.
I hope it's
If she wants two, she's pushing it.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Well, that is terrific. Now, the book, Life Flash is a memoir. The current version is out. It's going to be, and Kathy says you're on. So it looks like this show's going to cost you lunch. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, speaking of Kathy, she was, and 9/11, she was intended to, she and her husband, Peter, he's named Peter in the book, they had planned a vacation to Paris and Italy. And in April of 2001, and they were going to come back on. Originally they intended to come back on September 11th, and she was, and so at the very last minute, because they were going to come back on the 11th, because she was an executive with a company that was based in New York. And she was going to go to a meeting in one of the Twin Towers on September 11th. I think it was at 9:30. She had a 9:30 meeting, corporate board meeting, and so she initially said, no, it's important that we come back on the 10th so that I can fly to New York. That's what she would do. She'd work from home, and then she'd fly to New York on a regular basis. And then, so I could go to the corporate meeting. So long story short, a week or so later, she changed her mind. She said, no, I want to be in France for one more day. I want to come back on the 11th. So her husband, Peter, was not enthused about changing the travel plans that they had made, but he did so. So when they were leaving France and from de Gaulle Airport, shortly after they were taking off after the end of their vacation, the pilot informed them of what had happened in the United States, and they immediately were closing all the airspace, probably because people were panicking about something else happening somewhere else. So they were in the air for 10 hours before they were able to land again. I think at one point they did go somewhere where they could land and gas up. And then she said, when the people of France, the French people were so very, very good to them. They said they didn't charge them any fees for anything until they were able to rebook their flights, which I think for some took like almost a week because of all the confusion that was caused. So who knows why she, decided to change her itinerary at the last minute, but I'm glad she did.
Well, from your understanding and my understanding too, there was a reason why, because she's here
Right,
today.
right.
And because I'll tell you, they closed for those of you that, I was saying this on Monday, 25% of the adults in the United States were not born on 9/11.
Mhm.
Because that was 22 years ago. And so there are people, 25% of voting Americans were not alive when 9/11 happened, and another 20% were under 5 or under 10, and they don't really remember it. But I will tell
Mhm.
you that the day of that, when the plane started flying in, and there were actually 4 planes, two in the trade center, one in the Pentagon, and
Mhm.
one crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. And
Right.
they shut down it was really eerie because I live in Seattle, which is a hub, and there was no airplanes at all in the air for a long time after that. And
Mhm.
that was one of those,
Because
because
why?
they didn't know if the attacks were done yet. They could
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So
That's probably why they closed the airspace right after the event too. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't know where the planes had come from yet.
Mhm.
And as a matter of fact, I was watching a episode of a couple of fighter pilots that right when the planes hit, they got up in the air. They didn't have any bullets. They didn't have any missiles. And if they found the plane, the fourth one that they were looking for, which was the one that crashed in Pennsylvania,
Right.
they had made the decision to crash into that plane to keep it from going into Washington. A
Yeah,
lot of
that's
people,
what I heard that, that's what I read or heard that plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the heroic passengers overcame the terrorists and
correct.
because they were intending to, I think, probably crash into the White House.
And there are people that will tell you, and I was listening to an interview by a guy, I'm not going to use his name because he'll probably sue the pants off me, that said that was plane was shot down by U.S. Air Force, and I don't believe that for a minute. I think that those people on board risked their lives, and they knew what they were doing, and
I do too.
they're
Yeah.
heroes, every one of them. And
Hmm.
to say
Absolutely.
anything other than that, I think is a
Yeah.
travesty to them, and
Mhm.
is not good for their memory. So I shouldn't be talking that way. This is Positive Talk Radio, after all, and we've been talking with Merrie Reagan. And Merrie, we've got just a couple of moments left in the show, and so I'm going to give you the opportunity to say anything to our audience that you would like them to know.
Well, I guess maybe what I'll talk about is I talked a little bit about family in the book. And one of the things that family has taught me is, where did I put those? One of the things that family has taught me, my family, has grown over the years, and some families in Pennsylvania, some family now, we lived together when we were young. Now some families in Pennsylvania, some's in Europe, in England, some's local. So and just the way our family evolved, it just turns out that we don't see one another on a regular basis. And it used to bother me a good deal, but it doesn't bother me the way it used to, because I realized that through the years that life's a lot like a soap opera. You haven't seen somebody for 10, 20, 30 years. You sit with them, you come together with them, and you're there for an hour, and you're all caught up. So I found that to be a delightful happening with family. And I love family. And so, and then the other, I guess, a couple of things that I would like to comment on.
Got 30 seconds.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate all the people in the book, all the people and everyone that's mentioned in the book. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be where I am now without your love and encouragement and discipline, setting limits with me. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I wish everyone well.
And you
So is that 30 seconds?
Yeah, you did well. You are right on time. We see the reason is this is live radio, and we have what's called a hard clock that we have to adhere to. And so if we're on the podcast, we can go forever, but on the radio, we are done at precisely this moment. So Merrie Reagan, thank you for being here. Life Flashes and Memoirs, the name of the book. And your website
Kevin?
is
Can we talk for a few minutes after we go off the air?
After we're off the air, we can do that. So merriereagan.com, and be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. We'll see you we'll see you Wednesday.